The filter collections flow action addresses this use case. Suppose you want a flow that modifies accounts, and you want to do that based on industry, but it needs to be possible to group together combinations of different industry values, and it's got to be efficient about this so that you don't hit flow limits. Now, in SQL and Apex, you do this with the in operator. In this example here, you can see that you can do a filter for all the contacts that have first names of either Rose or Sean. And Flow doesn't support this yet. Flow doesn't make it easy to do this. So we have to work around that. And typical workarounds that have been done to date involve a lot of queries inside of loops, and sometimes that risks hitting the limits on Flow queries. So I wanted to build an action that you can simply add to a flow to do this. So the filter collections flow action supports only 5 standard objects today, but it's very easy to extend. And so I expect that there will be support added for additional objects in the future. And you can extend this pretty easily to support your own custom objects as well. And you can give it as an input either a comma-separated string that you just type into the flow builder that contains the filter targets, or a collection of strings, and that works very well with things like the new dual list box flow screen component. What you're about to see is available for installation at unofficialsf.com as a community action. Let's look at an example of what you can do with filter collection. We've got 4 accounts here, and they're in 3 different industries. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to have our flow filter for just the accounts in the particular industries that we specify. And one of the nice things about doing that in a flow is that the user could select the industry with a nice simple pick list, and then we could present the filtered list. And that's not very hard to do if it's just a single industry, but being able to select a bunch of them and pass that in, and then just have it filter automatically without having to do any looping would be a pretty nice time saver. Simplify our flow. So I've got a sample flow here, and what we're going to do here is we're going to run it. So the key to this flow is this action right here, filter collection. All the rest of this is just demo stuff. So let's run it and take a look. And I'm running it into the debugger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to query on field industry, and let's start with bank. So what we expect is we're going to get 2 results back. And we got 2 results back. And we got XHO and XHT. I didn't take the time to break this out, but we can go here and click on one of these and see that this indeed is XHO. So far so good. Let's run our filter again, but this time let's filter on chemicals. And we expect to get 1 result. That worked out pretty well. Let's filter on banking and chemicals and see if we get 3 results, and we do. So you're able to provide a comma-separated list here, which incidentally is one of the outputs that you can get from the new dual list box component, which is a component that works very well with this because it makes it very easy for a user to select, to do a multi-select. Let's talk about how this works. So we're marking this method as invocable method, and that exposes it to flow. what this method does is it starts working with the values that flow is passed to it. I'm using a pattern that I like to use where I use two inner classes, one called requests and one called results. And I'm putting all of my inputs into my request class, and I'm putting all of my outputs into my results class. And you can see here that I have created a separate entry for each specific S object that I want to support. And that's something that someday, not too long from now, we expect you not to need to do. But right now in Flow, you need to do that. So if you want to customize this to support an additional object, you start by adding an additional invocable variable here to the requests, and then an output to support the filtered version here to results. So let's go back up here. The requests come in from Flow, and essentially what we're doing is we're doing a little bit of code processing, and each of these, this is the one for account, this is the one for contact, so it's another example of a case where we've got a block for every S object we support. It's a little messy, but gets the job done. So what we're essentially doing is we're checking to see whether this was the one input collection that was passed in. You can only pass in one, or you'll get an error message because this flow action won't know which one you want to work with. So we take the one that you pass in and we cast it to source collection. Now, source collection is a generic. Its type is simply some kind of S object collection. So unlike these specific S object collections like contact collection, S object collection is I can be anything I want. So Apex has this capability. Flow does not yet have this capability, and that's why we've got all of this duplication, because what we're doing here is we're doing a casting. Casting is when you transform something from one type to another. So we're taking it from, in this case, account, and we're casting it to this generic. And we're doing that so that we can then do some processing and not have to copy and clone everything 5 times like this. So we've cast our incoming collection into this standard source collection. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to process the target values. Now, we make it possible in this component right now to pass in the values in 2 different ways. You can either choose to pass it in as a comma-separated string, which is what we do in the demo here in this video, or you can pass it in as a collection of strings, which may be convenient if you're dealing with a collection from upstream in the flow. So we call get target values, and what does get target values do? A lot of error checking primarily, but if you've passed in the comma-separated version, it splits it up so that subsequently we just deal with this string collection. So that comes back, and then the real work is done in this get filtered set method. So let's go down to get filtered set. So we're passing in the original source collection, the field name that we want to work with, and then the list of target values. And then we've got a couple of loops here. It's kind of brute force. We loop over everything in the collection, check it against everything in the target values. Because this is being done in Apex, it's a lot more, you don't run into some of the limits that you might run into if you did all of this intense loop work inside of Flow. And we basically end up with a filtered results. Now the filtered results, that's still one of these generics. So the last thing we have to do so that Flow can work with it is we have to cast it back, converting it back from this generic standard form to a specific S object type. And that's done this way. We take it and we put a parenthesis in front of it, and then we say, hey, I want it to really be this specific type, and then we put it in one of the specific output variables. So filtered account collection, you may recall, is one of the results that will be passed out to the flow. So that's how this works. And if you want to extend this, you basically need to add a variable here, add a variable here, and then up here you want to copy and paste one of these blocks and modify it for your particular object type. And then you want to add a little when block here for your particular object type. And then it will be working for whatever your custom object is.